Hello and welcome to our weekly LinkedIn Live Voices of Leadership series. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Kathy Eastwood, the CEO and host. I'm from E equals Y. Each week, we explore the fascinating world of leadership featuring voices from different generations, industries, and backgrounds. A team's job is to deliver results. It's the job of the leader to make sure those results happen. And when you think about it, there is a repeatable formula for this. It's the E3 leadership code: express plus engage plus execute, powered by emotions. But there's no one way for a leader to show up. It's all about coming in with your own individual styles because we're all different. And so, what we do on this call is to really talk about different styles, how we show up, and how we can influence others. So, thank you for joining us. We're very excited to have you here. And in the comments, please feel free to let us know where you're dialing in from. Please ask any questions. You can share your LinkedIn. This is a great opportunity to network with each other as well as us. But most importantly, ask us questions because we love to answer your questions. So now let me introduce you to our guest today. Bill Balnave is here and joining us. Bill's been on before, but I think it was a recorded session. So this time we got you live, Bill. So we can
Yes.
ask lots of questions. So a little bit about Bill, because when we think about our toolkit and what's really powerful, we talk about advocacy and really building relationships. Because great leadership isn't about having all the answers or sitting at the top. It's about building those relationships, as I said, creating alignment and cultivating trust across every level of the organization. So, Bill, joining us, is the VP of Customer Success at Mesmo. He's also the author of Tech Sales Wasabi and a longtime friend and believer in the power of grassroots influence. So, I'm excited to get into this and start talking about it.
Okay.
The Bill led teams through complexity, builds alignment across silos, and understands that real leadership starts with connection. So, with that, Bill, I'm so excited to have you here. Why don't you share with the audience a little bit about your journey and how you got here, and what's your leadership style? Just kind of set the tone for everyone.
Yeah, happy to. Very happy to be here. And so look, I'm trying to figure out how to Cliff's notes this so I don't, so it's not too much. I started in IT, spent 10 years in IT, and a very good friend of mine showed me a different path, a more lucrative path on the vendor side. So I went from being in IT to being a sales engineer. And it was a transition from having a job and making a paycheck to doing something that I actually had some passion about. So the elements of being a sales engineer, where you're meeting with different people, you're solving their problems, you have a chance to, you're presenting and demoing. There's a little bit of performance. You're the expert. People look to you. All those kinds of things, like all those elements were amazing to me, and so I really really enjoyed the role. And like maybe 5 years into my SE career, I had the opportunity to move into management, and not necessarily one that I like volunteered for. I happened to make the mistake of providing some feedback on the end of the year, and I provide some feedback on the team to the director of pre-sale, the SE director. I think it was director, not VP. Anyway, and he asked me, he's like, "Well, why aren't you going for the open management role?" And I'm like, because SE managers are just like people that schedule other people and they just deal with sales problems and all that. Like, I don't, that's not really fun to me at all. It's like, no, that's not what I really want that role to be. I want it to be all of the things that you just talked about in this, in, these suggestions to me. So having that happen was important. And then the other thing that happened was that the director that I then got to work for was somebody who believed in management as a profession, and really considered management to to be like, we talk about leadership and management as being kind of different things, which they are. But this person, Mike Fay, was very much about the leadership elements of management. It's like, look, management is important, but it was very much about the people aspects and the leadership aspects of it. And it's not just a, hey, you're just not the best person on the team, which is why you're leading. Like, this is a role. This is something that you have to do. And as a matter of fact, a lot of the things that you do intuitively that made you as successful as a sales engineer, you got to throw all those out, because what you need to do as a manager is kind of the opposite of a lot of those things. Huge lesson. I think if I was not working for somebody like Mike who had kind of that attitude, I probably would not have been excited about being in leadership and management. But to see it as something that I could embrace, and then along the way, and encountering other people like you, for instance, who also felt the same way, who's passionate about leadership, about the importance of leadership. I think that's really kind of helped shape what I think about it. And really quickly, just to wrap up, so to go from a very fast growth company, sales oriented company like Mercury, to go to HP and spend 4 years there through the acquisition, I tell people HP was my MBA. It was like, this is where you learn, like, it's a huge business. Like, this is how you learn business. HP, known for its management by walking around style, all of those kinds of things. And people will shrug and, oh, big company and they don't care about people and all that. I'm like, that's not what I found. Like, what I found at HP was still a lot of the elements that the guys that founded the company had, and that attention to performance management and talent management and things like that. And I feel like in those 4 years, I was able to take kind of the stuff I learned about leadership working for Mike and turn it into kind of process and talent review, and then to go to Aptio, where I had the opportunity to build a team and put those things into practice. Like, I feel very lucky to have done all of those, to have that particular journey, because it afforded me the ability to learn a ton about leadership. And then again, like, knowing you and being connected with somebody who also has a passion for leadership, like, I think the thing that you opened my eyes to is that, like, it's not something you can do alone. And I think a lot of people look at things like, oh, coaching and leadership development, and they're like, ah, it's nice to have, you don't really need it. I would say to you, that's complete opposite of what's true. Like, if you want to actually be effective, it's a core element of any kind of leadership strategy. So
I love it. So much there to unpack. So a couple of things. First, management is a profession, right? I think that is so powerful of a statement, because too often, you've got to get a certificate to be a CPA, to be a lawyer, to be a doctor, all of these roles that have a huge impact on people. But to be a manager, typically it's, oh, you were a good individual contributor, so therefore you'll be a manager. Right. And we're missing so much, because, as you said, it is not the same thing as just simply performing your job better. You have a huge responsibility to take care of those that are in your charge.
for sure. And as it, like, you look at it as an individual contributor, what is your job? It's to build this product. It's to write this piece of code. It's to close this deal, like, go get more customers, all of those kinds of things. And so that's how you orient yourself. When I had the opportunity to manage it, I had to reorientate myself to, what is my job? My job is not to close business for my company. My job is to help my team have everything that they need to go and close. In case of the fact that I was, sales engineers, to go and help them close. Right. My job was not, my celebration was not the closing of the deal. My celebration was one of my SEs closing the deal, having the skills to close the deal, having the right. It was that was a reorientation that I think was really important and fundamental, that I think a lot of people kind of miss out on. That was, to me, that was the opposite stuff. Like, I had to take being a great SE, which was like, go hard after deals, understand the product, be an expert, all those kinds of things. I had to step away from all of that and make that was like the least important. What became the most important was, are my folks getting everything that they need? Am I taking, do they have what they need to be successful? Are they in the right role? Do they have all the training? Am I holding them accountable to the standards of performance? All of those kinds of things. Like, that was the stuff that I needed to get up in the morning and worry about, not the, where's the next deal coming from?
Yeah. And it's interesting, because there is a statement we use in our boot camp, and I attribute it to you, right? The job of a team is to deliver the results. It's the job of the leader to pave the way and make sure it happens, right? Your job is to influence, to coach, to show gratitude, to the rewards and recognition, to give feedback, right? To have the difficult
Yeah.
conversations.
Yeah.
So, and you and I have had a ton of debates over the years around management versus leadership. And where I think we've really, concluded on is management is what you have to do, right? You have to do tasks, you have to get stuff done. Leadership is how you do it and really is about the people.
It is. And I think where you and I, where at least where, from my perspective, kind of where I would get, what would tip me off would be that people would be like, well, leadership is better than management. Leadership is more important than management. I'd be like, no, actually it's not. You have to have both. It's like leadership is fundamental to a lot of things. You can be a leader without being a manager. Like all of that stuff is true. But at the end of the day, your value to the people that report to you is how you operate inside the framework of your organization. That's management.
Yeah.
That's managing. And it's managing the expectations on your team. It's managing what the company is delivering for your team. It's managing the resources that you have available, all of that kind of stuff. Those are all really important things, because you can't your leadership and your supporting of people and all that will be for naught if they can't operate inside of that the framework of the organization that you work in.
Yeah. So let's take it up a little bit here, Bill, because that's one thing when you get that first role and you learn that your job as a manager is to care for those that are in your charge, right? And to help the team deliver. But as you continue to progress up the chain and now you're responsible for multiple teams, you also have another team that you're responsible to, right? Which is your peers. And one of the things, in your book that I love and the conversations we get into is having advocacy and also grassroots of building the relationships with everybody that you have to interact with. So talk to us a little bit about, your point of view around advocacy and what you shared in the book. And by the way, I do have a copy of the book.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Yeah, look, I as I moved up the corporate ladder, or whatever you want to call it, one of the I felt like one of my responsibilities was to provide a career path and a way forward for the folks that work for me that were in my organization. Right. I think and this is one of those where, like, everybody talks about the manager that, like, oh, they don't let me go because I'm so good. Like, well, if you're really good, then the right manager is actually letting you go, because that's part of your whole progression. So that my attitude was like, I need to help these folks find their career path and their way forward, and all of that, and help them progress, because my management had done that for me. And my management had been effective in doing that because they had relationships with the other managers. Well, where is the opportunity for the folks on your team? Sometimes it's by being promoted within, and that's great. Those are limited, though, and so the opportunity for your folks, and this is especially true of sales engineers, where there isn't this real, like, this predefined path. Um, is typically to have the opportunity to go to other organizations. Well, I thought it was my job. I got to pave the way for my folks to go to these other organizations, which means that, one, I had to be able to sell other leaders on their ability and their ability to do a different job, whatever, which means that I got to have a relationship with these other leaders so that I know kind of where these potential opportunities are. And I'm doing the work of teeing up, being able to move folks to, in some cases, to product management or product marketing, or move them into sales or consulting or whatever it was, and so it's this, to me, that was being an advocate for your folks to the rest of the leadership team. Like, that was a core part of, or I considered that to be a core part of my job. I mean, even just setting aside the fact that, like, hey, if you really want to get stuff done, like, you can't get stuff done individually as a team. Like you have to get stuff again. You have to get stuff done inside the framework of your company, of your organization. That means as a leader, you need to be able to work with the other leaders of other departments and functions and things like that. But the other benefit of that is like this is going to help me help lead my folks to other career opportunities and give them other chances and things like that.
Yeah, I love it. And that's, that's the leadership, because that role is not just to get the job done. It's to help the people advance and move forward and get the new people. But in that, as you were building those relationships with others so that you could advocate, what's some of the stuff you learned as far as the power of relationships with your peers? Because we had a debate one time, and not a debate, but we were a discussion, although most of our discussions are probably debates.
Are passionate, yes.
But we were having a conversation around, you have your direct team, but you also have your peers, and you're part of a team as you start to move up in organizations.
Yeah. So like this was a realization to me. Again, this is a Mike Fay thing early on. So, one of the things Mike said to me, he's pulled me aside. He's like, look, you're going to refer to your team as the people that work for you. That's not really your team. Your team are the other managers at your level. Like those are your coworkers now. The folks that work for you are not your coworkers per se. He's like, and what does that mean? He's like, well, like, because you can't be effective for them if you're still, one of the SEs, one of the guys, one of the people you're hanging out, you're still buddies, and all these things. He's like, I'm not saying don't be friendly with them, but like, your attitude has to be like, no, you work for me. I'm your manager. I team with other managers to get things done. That's where my activity is. And he was 100% right. And like I took that to heart, and I've tried to kind of maintain that to a degree. And it's always been really helpful. Like it just makes things so much easier. But I will tell you, like it's really can be really really hard. Like we were just talking about it a bit ago. Like you're just going to run into so many people that, like on the surface, you just don't like. I just don't like these. Like, but you have to kind of put that aside and really make it about like, okay, look at like I need to figure out how to be effective in working with you, despite how I may feel about you, because that's what I owe my team. That's what I owe the organization.
Yeah, and we get into quite a bit about this, is sometimes when we have different ways of looking at things, we think, well, this is the logical way and therefore it should go this way. But when you're working with people outside of your direct team and your direct control, you didn't have any impact. You didn't have any involvement potentially in hiring them. They may not, be your type of personality, but you have to get along
100%.
with a lot of different personalities in the workplace.
Yeah. Yeah, big time. Look, it's like a concrete example. Coming into Mesmo, my customer success team did not have a great relationship with the product team, and that's bad. Like in a software organization, like you don't want that to happen. And my folks felt frustrated because like they're trying to serve customer needs, they're trying to provide feedback to product wasn't really interested in listening and all that, and like there were lots of personalities involved. And at the time that I joined the company, there was a lot of people just digging in like, I'm right and I need to convince this other person that they're wrong so that they will listen to me, kind of thing. And my message to them was like, stop worrying about that. Let's just figure out how we have a relationship. Let's just get to know these people, because you clearly don't. And I, like, for me, it was like the timing was good because obviously I am just getting to know these people, so I could kind of put aside the like, hey guys, I know you're complaining about the product. Like everyone wanted to rush to me and tell me everything that was wrong with the product and what product management was doing wrong and all that. And I'm like, guys, I don't care. Like I don't want to hear about it. Like I'm maybe it's all true, maybe it's not. It doesn't really matter. Like let me just get to know these people first and figure it out. And like not perfect, but it was really helpful. And at the same time, as you and I have talked about, like I still struggle with like, damn it, I know that I'm right, but I have to stop worrying about me being right and worrying more about like, all right, let's figure out how I'm working together. what is it? And these are words, your words that always resonate in my head. Like, how do I treat this person the way that they want to be treated, so that I can so that we can move forward and progress and get things done. That's my responsibility. My responsibility is not to be right or to prove myself right, as much as I feel like I really want to do that. It's to like put that aside and figure out like, all right, I need to, here's a person that I don't really like all that much, but I'm going to figure out how to get along with you because that's what my team needs me to do so that they can get what they want. This is what the organization needs.
But if you look at it and when you think about it, maybe share with the audience, what's your personality type? Like, how do you typically show up on a given day?
There's given all of the personality tests that I've taken and all of those kinds of things. Like there's two things I would say. One, like my motto is be brief, be right, be gone. Like let's do what we need to do. Like here it is. It's what we need to do. Let's get it done. Move on. And you coined the phrase like I'm the run to the door guy. I'm like okay, I see where we need to go, and we're off. And what I'm not necessarily doing is considering the fact that the people behind me are like, yeah, but how do you know that's the way to go? And where's the evidence of that? And wait, I don't feel right about this. And I'm kind of like, I don't care what you feel. I don't need to do full analysis. Come on, we got to go. And like that doesn't help care. That doesn't help bring people along. So I need to figure out how I dial that down. And I know I show up like that. And I know that that can be off-putting to people sometimes. And depending on how deep they are, opposite of my personality, can be really off-putting. So that and that's something that I think for years and years and years, like I've struggled with and not necessarily been aware of.
Yeah, and you and I are very similar, right? We have what we coin the red energy from Clarity 4D. We run to the fire, get things
Yep.
done. It tend to be a lot more logical in how we approach things. Like, why wouldn't you just show up for the meeting, right? Like the logic was, I don't understand. But when you're dealing with people with different energies, they are more like, well, I don't feel like it. Like, why should I do it? They want to emotionally know what's involved in it. And that really requires folks like us to have to dial that back a little bit and go, okay, how is this being perceived? And, when you think about that perception, how do you start to recognize that perhaps you're being perceived, although it's a positive trait, right? And I'll say you have an amazing way of clearly articulating what's going on, putting the data around it, getting everyone excited. You're passionate and you're succinct and you've got the point, but that can at times not leave space for others. So, how do you go about recognizing that and thinking about it and making that space for others?
Look, self-awareness is a is a big deal and so really important. And it's one of those things that is a constant journey. Like you don't just certain all of a sudden become self-aware. It's something that you need to continually be working on. For me, that self-awareness, it's a combination of, being introspective and doing self-development and all those things. But I think without good coaching and leadership, like I would not necessarily have that awareness because, as you know, when you talk about Kathy, in a stressful situation or in a pressure situation, you will fall back on kind of your innate personality and what your coping mechanisms are, and you lose the ability to be as self-aware as you would like to be or you should be or whatever. And it's so important to have somebody from the outside who is there on a regular basis, gets to know you, knows your team and all of that, to be able to say to you, like, hey, you're being really red right now. And as a result, this may be happening. And like, yeah, when that happens, it's like, yeah, you're right. And thank God I had you to let me know that because otherwise, like, this might have gone rather poorly.
Yeah, and you've actually we've done the boot camp with your team, and it's been fun watching it because you do have a very diverse team, right? A lot of different energy and personalities. And one of the things that you shared with them is you've given them permission, right? To say like, hey, this is how I could show up. I don't mean to, like, this is my personality. This is who I am. This is why. And sometimes it can be viewed the wrong way. And I give you permission to call me on it.
Yeah, like I'm like you were saying, I'm red and yellow. Like when you kind of falling back on the clarity 40. And by the way, having that framework so that we have a common language to be able to refer to it, like that's hugely important. It's without that, I think it would be impossible for my team to be able to do what you just suggested, right? Because yeah, it would be really hard. So right. What's interesting is I'm very red, so I'm very I'm a driver, but also yellow, which means like I want everybody to love me and all that kind of stuff. And most of my team is very green and very blue. So very green, like like they have good hearts, care about people. I have almost no green, which is always odd to me thinking about like here I'm a people manager and I have like not a scrap of green in me. Like that's probably not. So I got to work hard to get the green. And they're very blue, which is like they like to understand in detail and all of that. And I didn't kind of maybe realize it at the time, but you know whatever that was 3 4 weeks ago when we were kind of talking through this and you know we show the whole team like okay everybody like look at where we fall kind of in the color spectrum and I'm like, you guys need to understand, I am used to leading teams of highly red, highly yellow people because the sales engineering teams that I built, the sales engineering teams that I led, that's who I hired. That's who was there. Like we were all kind of very similar. So it was always execute, go fast, whatever it takes. Don't worry about the small stuff. Don't worry about the details. Don't worry about what people feel. Just go hard at it. I'm like, I'm used to leading teams like that. You are a completely different team from what I am used to leading, and I'm going to have to work on doing that. So please, if I'm being read, like just say, Bill, be a little dial the red down. We need you to, and so that I know because as I said before, like you get into a situation, either high pressure or you're fired up, you're excited, whatever, you're going to fall back into kind of what your core makeup is and your coping mechanisms and yeah, that for me can mean I get loud, I get fast, I get intense, and I think that like for the folks on my team, it can be overwhelming, and they need to know like, oh yeah, that's just Bill being Bill, and so it's okay to tell him like, dude, dial down the bill a little bit.
To dial down the bill. Can I use that too?
Like what? Like you don't now? Come on.
Well, yeah, and
I mean, that's the polite way of you saying it. Like you usually use other phrases, so.
yeah, but I think it's so important when we're working with other teams, building relationships, to have this knowledge and to know ourselves and understand how a positive trait can actually be viewed as negative, right? And understanding that is how can you use your positive trait? Because you don't want to get rid of your positive trait, right? Like what you do well is important, but if that's being perceived, perception can become reality. And so if you're not careful, that perception then becomes, oh, that's how Bill is. That's Bill being Bill. And then eventually people like, I don't even want to
You
go
can
with
make it
Bill.
self-fulfilling, right? And then you're falling into whatever their preconceived notion is, you're reinforcing it, and it completely sabotages your ability to make relationships with them. Yeah, like it's interesting, like like being part of um, a technical selling organization or a customer success organization. You stand a little bit in the gap between like sales and engineering and product management and you're a little bit of sales, you're a little bit of technical, but you're not, you know, all in on everything. And like I needed to learn when I'm dealing with the engineering team or when I'm dealing with like yeah, let's take the engineering team. I'm dealing with the engineering team. Like these guys are typically very blue, very detail oriented, and by the way, very turned off by salespeople. Like they are the anti salespeople, and so the first thing I needed to realize was like, okay, that's the moniker that they've hung on me. That because like I'm in the customer facing organization, like that's the way that it is. So I need to accept the fact that they're going to look at me as a salesperson, and all of the preconceived notions that they have about salespeople, they're going to attach to me, even though like I don't believe that I have those things. So what do I need to do to overcome that? I need to be very detail oriented, and I need to slow down, and I need to be not so intense, not so much bravado, not so much charisma, more matter of fact, more logical, more this is why we need to do this. This is why that's important. This is why, like, and it's very anti what I'm, kind of what my nature is. So it's hard. It's hard. It's really hard. And I'm not like always successful at it, but it's that realization that like, okay, I'm talking to an engineering leader now, and I need to get you involved with a customer. And typically it's like, hey, we're getting on with a customer. Say all the great things that you need to say. Like, don't say bad things, only say good things. And I remember being at Aptio and wanting to bring an engineer on in this customer needed something particular, and I wanted to give the customer the confidence that yep, we could deliver on it. And I wanted to bring somebody from the engineering team to talk about like this is how we do it, blah blah. And the person's like, well, I really don't want to. I don't want to be part of a sales call because I don't want to lie.
Mm.
And it was like a slap in the face because I'm like, dude, we're not a bunch. Like, do you think we're just a bunch of liars? Like saying whatever we need to say to get. But yeah, exactly. That's exactly what this person thought. That we were a bunch of liars saying whatever you need to say to get somebody to buy, and we really don't care what the truth is. So there was there was that realization, like, oh man, like this is how you're thinking about it. Like, not a knock on you. Like, it's just been your experience, is what you think, and like, so I had to do this kind of, it changed very much how I was positioning this person and what I expected and wanted them to do.
Yeah. And it's interesting as you're talking. Oh, there's a lot of leaders out there that would say, well, you just have to adapt to the way I do things. But what we've been talking about is you creating that awareness, understanding how you show up, how others show up, what they preference. And you talked about it being hard. Is it worth it?
But you know what? It's a subjective question from the standpoint of like, if you want to be a successful leader, yeah, it's worth it, right? Like I think those leaders who are like, well, I'm the hard charger, and you got to do whatever, you got to adjust to me. Like you only get so far, and if you don't care that the people that work for you out of fear, not because they really are inspired and want to work for you, then great. Like be that person. Like I decided that that's not. I don't. That's not really. I didn't want to. That's not really what it's about.
Yeah. And I mean, you've seen the success of treating people and getting to know them, understanding them, and it's a journey. So if you have you been in a situation where that perception wasn't the most positive, have you been able to change it? And if there's folks on this call that have gotten themselves into a situation, do you think you can change your perception in the workplace?
I think you can. Look, I think that there have always been folks that have thought of me as the, oh, it's Bill's way or the highway kind of person because, I come across, I've got a very strong personality. I typically have a strong opinion, all of that kind of stuff. I have not always been able to overcome that, but I think where I have been able to overcome it because I just addressed it directly and tried to be as vulnerable as possible in those moments with those people. It's the situations that where the people have that opinion that you don't know about it. Like it's not always easy to do. So yeah, I mean, I think I have been able to overcome it. It's at times, and at other times, like I know that I probably haven't. And, do the best I can.
Yeah, and I appreciate you being really vulnerable and sharing that because, I mean, in my course of my career, there have been scenarios where we've had to rebrand folks, and you get pigeonholed as a
Yeah,
certain type of leader with a
yeah,
certain type of personality, and we all have confirmation biases. So when you continue to, we people can always find proof that you are fitting that mold. So you really have to break it down
for
and
sure.
stop and understand what is the mold, what is your perception, how do people think about you, and that their intent, your intent, right? Are you telling them how you intend to show up and you don't mean this? And if I am showing up that way, then call me on it, right? And start to build those relationships and that trust. And it's not easy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
And I give you a ton of credit because you do work on it. And, we've done
Appreciate that.
360s with your teams. And, so a couple of takeaways here and for the audience to think about what we've been able to do, right? It's boot camps, having a language, right, with your teams, being able to know how you each show up, your personalities, coaching. You spend a lot of time and you take feedback, right? And a lot of people are not good at feedback and having that come to you, and discovery, right? The 360s and stuff like that. So,
Yep.
what advice? So, just as we're way over time, but you and I could talk all afternoon. It could be interesting. What's one piece of advice you would have for leaders coming up that might be struggling with really connecting to whether it's their direct team or their peer team?
Look, and this is in no way uh, preconceived. Kathy is not paying me to say this. The biggest piece of advice that I would give you is don't try to do it yourself. You just can't. You're just not going to be as successful as you want to be with it. Depending on your situation, getting outside help makes a huge difference. It for sure did at Pyramid Analytics, where I took over a team of people that had been with the company for a long time, and like we're just kind of all pulled together. They had not been a team before. Nobody had really bothered to think about like what I need to do to make them a team and all of that. And I was kind of struggling with them. And to me, when we did the boot camp with them, it was transformational. Like all of a sudden, these people actually like they were invested. They learned about each other. In fact, here were people that had worked together for years and years and years that didn't know a bunch of stuff about each other, and all of a sudden they did, and it was great. And I think the same thing is happening at Mesmo as well. It's like I couldn't do it by myself, and it's not just the whole boot camp thing. It's like it's the fact that you and I do some coaching on a regular basis, and it's extremely having that outside input is to me is critical to being successful. Otherwise, you're just you're tying two arms behind your back and you're trying to get into a boxing contest. You just can't do it.
I appreciate that, Bill. And it is, we can't do it alone. And that's the thing. Leadership, you started off with saying that leadership and management is a people business. And we all have so many different personalities that it's not rote. You can't just follow this process.
Yeah.
So we need to create a team. It's actually a perfect segue. We're doing a lunch and learn at the end of the month around coaching and building your personal board of directors, right? Sometimes it's paid coaches,
Outstanding.
sometimes it's mentors, sometimes it's your friends, right? We
Yeah.
can't do this alone, and we have to look at how do we build our board, because that's how we can truly be successful. So, well, Bill, thanks so much for joining us and being
Pleasure.
vulnerable and sharing and giving some insights to others to make sure they understand how they're being perceived and how they can help build those relationships, be advocates for others, be advocates for themselves, and really be a better leader and really drive the results that the teams need to drive. So thanks so much. Thanks all for joining us. We greatly appreciate it. We put some of the links in the chat if you can join us for the next events, and have a great weekend. Thanks.
Thanks, everybody.